There's a village on Long Island with no stores, no gas stations, no traffic lights, just stone gate posts and driveways that vanish into the trees. Not a park, a real village where 900 people live on land that belong to Standard Oil heirs. New York wealth is supposed to be penthouses and Park Avenue, right? But what the skyline won't show you is the other New York, where the richest families live on dirt roads they refuse to pave, where a town invented the Tuxedo and doesn't number its houses, where the only way in is a private ferry. Number 1 hasn't changed in a century. Let's see it. Population roughly 800, Far Hills sits in the Somerset Hills of northern New Jersey, about 40 miles west of Manhattan. This is horse country, not the kind with white vinyl fences and a riding lesson sign out front, the kind with stone walls, hunt clubs, and steeplechase races run on the former estate of a Pfizer heir. The Essex Hunt was founded in 1870 and brought to the Somerset Hills by families like the Bradys, the Schlees, and the Dillons. The Far Hills Race Meeting, held annually at Moreland Farm, the former Grant Schley estate, is one of the oldest and most socially important steeplechase events in America. It's the kind of event where the tailgate tents have chandeliers and the parking lot has more Range Rovers than a London dealership. The U.S. equestrian team is headquartered nearby in Gladstone. Jackie Kennedy boarded her horses and rode in the Somerset Hills during the 1960s and 70s while living in neighboring Bernardsville. The area was known for its landed gentry long before hedge funds existed. Median home prices in Far Hills run well over $1 million, but the real estate, the one set back behind a quarter-mile of gravel driveway and a stone gate with no nameplate, trades privately. The lots are measured in tens of acres, not square feet. Property taxes on a Far Hills estate can exceed $50,000 a year. That's not a mortgage payment, that's the annual tax bill, and the families paying it have been paying it since their great-grandfathers rode to hounds on the same land. Far Hills isn't famous. The people who live there made sure of that. The Somerset Hills are New Jersey's answer to Westchester horse country, except quieter, less photographed, and significantly less interested in being discovered. The roads wind through mature hardwood forest past gates that have been repainted every spring for 4 generations. The mailboxes don't have names on them. The driveways curve so you can't see the house from the road. And the annual steeplechase is the one day a year when the rest of New Jersey is invited to see what it looks like. The other 364 days, the gates are closed. Population 1,881. Lattingtown is an incorporated village inside the town of Oyster Bay on Long Island's North Shore, part of the Gold Coast that F. Scott Fitzgerald fictionalized in The Great Gatsby. The village has no commercial businesses, no stores, no restaurants, nothing that would tell a passing driver that one of the wealthiest communities in America is behind the next tree line. The land here traces to the Lattings, who purchased it from the Matinecock band in 1660. Financier Frank Bailey's estate became the 42-acre Bailey Arboretum, now a public garden that contains what's been described as the world's largest dawn redwood. Forbes and other publications have repeatedly ranked Lattingtown's zip code among the most expensive in the country. Gated enclaves like Lattingtown Harbor and Land's End define the waterfront. But the most remarkable fact about Lattingtown is who lived there at the end. Madame Chiang Kai-shek, born Sung Mei-ling, the former First Lady of the Republic of China, one of the most powerful women of the 20th century, spent her final years and died here in 2003 at the age of 105. She lived on the Lattingtown estate of her niece in near total privacy. No press conferences, no public appearances, no interviews. The woman who once addressed the United States Congress in 1943 and helped shape World War II diplomacy in Asia died on a quiet Gold Coast estate, and almost nobody in the village noticed. That's Lattingtown, the kind of place where a former head of state can die, and the neighbors find out from the newspaper. The village operates on a principle that most wealthy communities aspire to, but few achieve: total invisibility. There's no village hall that looks like a village hall. No sign on the road says "Welcome to Lattingtown." The only way you know you've entered it is that the driveways get longer, the hedges get taller, and the mailboxes disappear entirely. Lattingtown doesn't want to be found. And 1,881 residents have been quietly proving that for 360 years. Shelter Island sits between the North Fork and the South Fork of Long Island, accessible only by 2 small car ferries. There is no bridge, no tunnel, no helicopter pad for the public. If you want to reach Shelter Island, you wait in line at the ferry dock in Greenport or North Haven, pay your fare, and ride across the water. That single barrier has kept Shelter Island quieter than any town in the Hamptons. A third of the island is the Mashomack Preserve, over 2,000 acres of coastal oak forest, tidal creeks, and nesting osprey habitat, saved by the Nature Conservancy in 1980. The Sylvester Manor Plantation dates to the 1650s and is one of the oldest continuously occupied estates in New York State. The long-gone Manhasset House Hotel once hosted J.P. Morgan. The island carries deep old money and old Protestant roots that predate the Hamptons social scene by generations. There are no nightclubs, no celebrity chef restaurants, no paparazzi. The general store is still a general store. The churches are still full on Sunday. The families who summer here have been doing so for 3 and 4 generations, passing down the same cedar-shingled cottages to children and grandchildren who learn to sail in the same harbor. Shelter Island is what the Hamptons used to be before the Hamptons became a brand. The ferry is the moat, and the families inside the moat have no interest in building a bridge. Every few years, someone proposes a bridge to one of the forks. Every few years, the proposal dies. The island's residents don't want faster access. They want slower access. The 10-minute ferry ride is the most effective zoning law in the Hamptons. It filters out day trippers, real estate speculators, and anyone who isn't willing to wait in line for the privilege of arriving. Shelter Island's wealth is the quiet kind. The houses are cedar shingled, not glass walled. The cars are Volvos, not Lamborghinis. The money is old enough that it doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Millbrook sits in Dutchess County in the Hudson Valley, roughly 90 miles north of Manhattan. This is hunt country. The Millbrook Hunt has operated for over a century. The 600-acre Millbrook School sits on a hilltop campus that looks like a small English university. The estates here run to thousands of acres, with new post and board fencing that costs more per mile than most people's annual rent. But Millbrook's greatest story isn't about wealth. It's about what happened when wealth got bored. The Hitchcock Estate, a 2,000-acre compound originally built by Union Carbide founder Charles Dieterich and later owned by Standard Oil's Walter Teagle, was rented in 1963 by Mellon heirs Billy and Peggy Hitchcock to a Harvard psychology professor named Timothy Leary. Leary moved in with his followers and turned the robber baron's mansion into a psychedelic commune. LSD experiments, meditation, acid trips in the library of a Standard Oil estate. The commune ran for 3 years until a young assistant district attorney named G. Gordon Liddy raided it in 1966. Liddy later became famous for organizing the Watergate break-in. Leary later became famous for being Leary. The estate was recently listed for $65 million. A Mellon heir let Timothy Leary turn a Gilded Age mansion into an acid lab, and the man who shut it down went on to commit the most famous burglary in American political history. Millbrook produced both stories, and the horse farms on either side of the estate never flinched. That's old money. Nothing surprises it. Not even LSD in the drawing room. Millbrook today looks exactly like what it is. A town where people with generational wealth raise horses, send their children to boarding schools, and pretend the 1960s never happened on their property. The Millbrook Diner still serves breakfast. The farm stands still sell corn, and the 2,000-acre estate where Timothy Leary dropped acid with Mellon heirs is still standing behind a gate that now has a $65 million price tag. Old money doesn't demolish its scandals. It absorbs them, and then it raises the asking price. Old Westbury is the purest old money town on Long Island. Settled by English Quakers, it became a Gilded Age estate colony between 1880 and 1920 for industrialists whose names are now on hospitals, museums, and university buildings across the Northeast. The Phipps family, heirs to the Carnegie Steel and U.S. Steel fortune, built Westbury House in 1906. The mansion sits on 200 acres of formal gardens that are now Old Westbury Gardens, a museum that has appeared in more than 25 films, including Love Story and The Age of Innocence. Harry Payne Whitney, whose fortune combined Standard Oil and Vanderbilt money, built his estate nearby. The Hitchcocks, the Graces, and the Posts all built on the same stretch of rolling North Shore hills. Today, the median sale price run is around $2.5 to $2.8 million. The mean household income is reported at roughly $412,000. The village has over 30 miles of private horse trails. The old Westbury Golf and Country Club anchors the social life. The estates are measured in tens of acres and set back behind hedges high enough to hide a 3-story house. The thing about old Westbury is that the wealth isn't new. The Phipps family money traces to the 1870s. The Whitney money traces to the 1860s. These aren't families who made their fortune in tech or finance. These are families who made their fortune in steel and oil when steel and oil were building America. Their great-grandchildren still ride horses past Westbury House every morning. The gardens are open to the public. The driveways behind the hedges are not. Old Westbury is the town that most clearly answers the question this video is asking. Where does New York's old money actually live? It lives on 200 acres of former U.S. steel land where the hedges are maintained by a grounds crew that has worked the same estate for 3 generations. It lives on 30 miles of private horse trails that connect properties whose owners' last names are on the wings of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Old Westbury isn't hiding from anything. It's been here since the Gilded Age. It just never saw a reason to introduce itself. Population, roughly 900. Matinecock is an incorporated village inside the town of Oyster Bay, tucked within the Locust Valley zip code on Long Island's North Shore. The village has essentially no commercial businesses, no stores, no restaurants, no gas stations, no traffic lights, nothing that would indicate to a passing driver that a community exists behind the stone walls and mature oaks. The name means hill country in the Algonquian language of the Matinecock band who lived here before European contact. The land later passed through the Pratt family hands, the Standard Oil heirs who built estates across the North Shore, and through families connected to J.P. Morgan's financial empire. The Piping Rock Club, one of the 2 most socially exclusive country clubs on the North Shore, falls within Matinecock's boundaries. The club was designed in 1911 and 1912, and its membership is by invitation only, with a multi-year wait list and an initiation reportedly in the 6 figures. Cole Porter shattered both his legs in a riding accident at Piping Rock in 1937. He never walked properly again. The club barely noticed. Listings in Matinecock routinely sit on 5 to 11 acre parcels behind gates. Property taxes on a Matinecock estate can run to 6 figures annually. The village functions as a residential nature preserve for people whose net worth has more digits than their street address. When your village has no commercial zone, no traffic, and no public amenities of any kind, you've achieved something beyond wealth. You've achieved disappearance. Matinecock isn't hiding, it's simply made sure there's nothing to find. The village doesn't appear on most people's mental maps because it deliberately removed every reason to appear. No commerce means no foot traffic. No foot traffic means no visitors. No visitors means no attention. And no attention means the families who've lived here since Standard Oil was a functioning monopoly can continue living here without anyone writing an article about their driveways. Matinecock is the logical endpoint of old money privacy. If you remove every public-facing element of a community, what remains is a residential nature preserve for people whose property taxes exceed most Americans' annual salaries. And that's exactly what Matinecock is. Bedford sits in northern Westchester County, about 50 miles from Midtown Manhattan. Most of rural Bedford is zoned for a 4-acre minimum lot size. The roads are lined with stone walls that date to the 18th century. Some of the roads are still unpaved, and when newcomers ask when they'll be paved, the answer is never. The dirt is deliberate. It slows traffic, it discourages outsiders, and it preserves the illusion that you've driven into 1776, not 2026. Martha Stewart assembled her 153-acre Cantido Corners estate here, beginning in 2000, including a $10.5 million parcel. Ralph Lauren owns property nearby. George Soros has an estate in the area, but the celebrity names are the newcomers. The old money was here first. The Kellogg family still occupies an 18th century house at Mill Pond. The Bedford Golf and Tennis Club has served the same social circle for generations. The Bedford Historical Society preserves a village green that looks like it was built as a movie set, but wasn't. Bedford's 4-acre zoning is the weapon that keeps it hidden. When every lot must be 4 acres, density is impossible. When ethnicity is impossible, development never comes. When development never comes, there's nothing to attract attention. No shopping centers, no chain restaurants, no reason for anyone who doesn't live here to drive through. The stone walls are beautiful, the zoning is brutal, and the combination produces one of the most deliberately preserved pockets of old money privacy on the East Coast. The dirt roads aren't a failure of infrastructure, they're a statement of intent. Bedford is the rare town where the zoning code functions as a philosophy. 4 acres per home means roughly 60 houses per square mile instead of the thousands you'd find in a normal suburb. The stone walls were built by farmers in the 18th century and are now maintained by landscape architects who charge more per hour than the farmers earned in a month. The Bedford Riding Lanes Association maintains miles of bridle trails through private property. The local paper covers horse shows and land trust acquisitions. Bedford doesn't look rich at first glance. It looks rural, and that's the point. The wealth here doesn't announce itself with marble and glass. It announces itself with acreage, silence, and a road that hasn't been paved since George Washington actually did sleep here. In 1885, tobacco heir Pierre Lorillard IV used land partly won in a poker game and brought in 1,800 imported Italian laborers to build, in 9 months, 30 miles of roads, a clubhouse, stables, and the first cottages of a private hunting and fishing retreat behind imposing stone gates. Tuxedo Park is recognized as one of the first gated communities in the United States. It's been gated since 1886. It's still gated now. The Tuxedo itself was born here. At the Autumn Ball in 1886, either Lorillard's son Griswold or his associate James Brown Potter wore a tailless black dinner jacket instead of the traditional coat with tails. The garment shocked polite society. Then, polite society copied it. The Tuxedo was named after the town. The town was named after the Lenape word for crooked river. A garment that defined a century of formal wear was invented by a tobacco heir at a ball inside a gated compound built by Italian workers on land won in a poker game. That's the most Gilded Age sentence in the English language. Emily Post, the defining voice of American etiquette, was the daughter of architect Bruce Price, who designed the original Tuxedo Park cottages. She grew up here. She based her etiquette empire on the social codes she learned inside the gates. J.P. Morgan had a home. Investment banker and physicist Alfred Lee Loomis ran a private science laboratory here in the 1930s and 1940s that contributed to the development of radar before World War II. The village, incorporated in 1952, is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and the houses still don't have street numbers. Mail is addressed by name, not number. If the post office doesn't know who you are, you probably don't belong here. Prices range from roughly $600,000 to over $3 million, which by Gold Coast and Hampton standards is almost modest. The exclusivity isn't in the price, it's in the gate, and the gate has been closed for 140 years. Tuxedo Park is simultaneously the most storied and the most underpriced town on this list. $600,000 to $3 million for a home inside America's first gated community, where the tuxedo was invented, where Emily Post learned etiquette, where J.P. Morgan kept a cottage, and where a physicist helped win World War II from a private lab. In Bedford or Greenwich, that same pedigree would cost $10 million. In Tuxedo Park, it costs less because the town chose legacy over liquidity. The homes aren't investments, they're inheritances, and the families who live inside the gates measure their wealth not in dollars, but in how many generations have passed through the same front door. The houses don't have numbers because the houses don't need numbers. The postman knows who lives here, and if you don't, that's the point. Everyone has heard of Greenwich, Connecticut, hedge fund managers, private equity partners, the wealthiest zip code in the wealthiest county in one of the wealthiest states in America, but almost nobody has been past the gatehouse at Belle Haven. Belle Haven is a gated peninsula of fewer than 200 homes on roughly 300 acres jutting into Greenwich Harbor. Private roads, a private homeowners association, and the 1895 Belle Haven Club, where the initiation fee runs approximately $55,000 with annual dues around $12,000. Estates here range from $5 million to over $50 million. The peninsula is a world within a world. From the outside, it looks like a quiet stretch of waterfront road with a guard booth. From the inside, it looks like the kind of place where people have boats named after their grandmothers and tennis courts older than most American suburbs. North of the Merritt Parkway, backcountry Greenwich is the equestrian estate zone. Conyers Farm is a gated community of 10 to 20 acre parcels with private riding trails, its own security, and a landscape that looks more like the English Cotswolds than suburban Connecticut. Properties here run $10 to $30 million. Some have their own polo fields. Greenwich is the town people name when they think of Connecticut wealth. Belle Haven is the neighborhood inside Greenwich that Greenwich residents talk about in whispers. And backcountry is the zone beyond Belle Haven, where the estates are so large that the property lines don't show up on Google Maps at normal zoom. 3 layers of wealth, each one more hidden than the last. The hedge fund managers live in Greenwich. The old money lives in Belle Haven, and the families who were rich before hedge funds existed live in the backcountry behind gates that don't have signs. Greenwich gets the magazine covers. Belle Haven gets the privacy. The distinction matters because it reveals how old money actually operates. It doesn't move to the most famous address. It moves to the most famous address's most private corner, and then it builds a gatehouse. The $55,000 initiation fee at the Belle Haven Club isn't expensive by Greenwich standards. It's expensive by design. The fee doesn't pay for the tennis courts. It pays for the knowledge that everyone on the other side of the net can afford to be there. Old money doesn't compete on price. It competes on access. And Belle Haven's access starts with a guard booth that most of Greenwich drives past without ever knowing what's on the other side. Fisher's Island is the most exclusive residential enclave in the tri-state area. It sits at the eastern end of Long Island Sound, 2 miles off the Connecticut coast, but is legally part of the town of Southold in Suffolk County, New York. There is no bridge. Access is by a private ferry from New London, Connecticut, roughly 45 minutes, or by small plane to Elizabeth Field, a grass and asphalt strip that closes in bad weather. As of the 2020 census, the year-round population was 424. In summer, it swells to roughly 2,000. The island has 554 homes, approximately 80% of which are seasonal. In 1965, social historian Cleveland Amory described Fisher's Island as the last resort of the big rich, and they want it kept that way. Old money families, Rockefeller, DuPont, Whitney, Firestone, and Roosevelt have summered here since the turn of the 20th century. The island was originally granted to John Winthrop Jr., an early governor of Connecticut, in 1640. The Ferguson brothers founded the modern development in 1924, commissioned the Olmsted brothers to design the exclusive East End subdivision, and hired Seth Rayner to build the Fisher's Island Club golf course, which opened in July 1926. The course is consistently ranked among the top 10 in America and is called the Cypress Point of the East. Members refer to it as the Big Club to distinguish it from the 9-hole Hay Harbor Club. Membership is by invitation only. The entire island is effectively controlled by the Fisher's Island Development Corporation, which owns the land under the club, the yacht club, and holds stakes in the island's water, electric, and telephone utilities. Real estate rarely lists publicly. When sales do occur, median prices have run around $6 million, though on very few transactions. Buyers also pay a 2% community preservation transfer tax. Because the island has no direct New York connection, every athletic team at the tiny school plays Connecticut schools. The trash goes to Connecticut, and state troopers must travel through Connecticut to reach it. Fisher's Island is number 1 because it's the most extreme version of the thesis. No bridge, no public ferry, no stores you'd recognize, no way in unless someone who already lives there decides you belong. The DuPonts and Whitneys didn't choose Fisher's Island because it was beautiful, although it is. They chose it because it was inaccessible, and they made sure it stayed that way. 100 years later, the ferry still runs from New London, the golf course still ranks in the top 10, and the island still has 424 year-round residents who have no interest in making it 425. Fisher's Island is what happens when old money finds a place that's physically impossible to reach without effort and decides that the effort is the best security system ever invented. No gate, no guard booth, no hedge. Just 7 miles of Long Island Sound between the island and anyone who wasn't invited. The DuPonts didn't build a wall. They chose water, and water doesn't need a code, a permit, or a homeowners association meeting to keep people out. It just sits there cold and deep, doing exactly what old money always wanted, making sure you have to ask permission before you arrive. That's not wealth, that's architecture, and the blueprint hasn't changed since 1640. Subscribe because you just watched a countdown that started with Jackie Kennedy's horse country and ended on an island you can't reach without permission. Every town on this list exists within 100 miles of Times Square. None of them want you to visit. And that's exactly how old money works. The wealthiest people in New York don't live in penthouses. They live behind stone walls on dirt roads and on islands with no bridge. And they've been there since before your family arrived in America.